This podcast is supported by Lucasfilm and Disney+, presenting Music by John Williams. For your Emmy consideration in all categories, including Outstanding Documentary or Nonfiction Special. The Hollywood Reporter calls Music by John Williams a richly satisfying tribute to an unimpeachable cinematic legend. Music by John Williams is now streaming only on Disney+. This episode was recorded live in Los Angeles. We held conversations about 3 Emmy contenders, Will and Harper, Social Studies, and Chimp Crazy. I'm Thom Powers, and this is Pure Nonfiction. This past weekend, we brought our Documentary Spotlight live event to Los Angeles in partnership with The Ankler. We'll share 3 of those conversations on this episode and 3 more on the next. First up is Will and Harper, playing on Netflix. The film follows comedian Will Ferrell and his longtime friend Harper Steele taking a road trip across America soon after Harper has transitioned to be a woman. Harper spent 13 years as a comedy writer and producer for Saturday Night Live. She's written several films, including Eurovision Song Contest. I sat down with Harper and asked how she first bonded with Will.
I mean, humor is a kind of a language. It's kind of a love language for people. All your friends probably, you all have to speak the same humor. I think we just walked into the building very early. We were both brand new at SNL, 1995, or 2000. 1995, is that right? 2005. 2005. We walked into the same time, and so you're kind of looking for allies and friends, and Will and I went to a downstairs to a cafe with Sherry O'Terry, who is also very funny, but different than Will and I, and it was immediately apparent that we sort of shared the same sense of humor. And that was the beginning. And, it's, I think you can tell when you meet someone who has your sense of humor. Will and I, we have a very mischievous, fuck with the world kind of sense of humor. And I think, we bonded over that.
Well, look, when you look back at the things that you did together, like, are there some high points in that, or like skits that you love, or films or TV commercials?
No. I mean, we just have been working together for so long that it's impossible. I mean, probably all my high points with Will are outside of actual projects, or being on set or something. And, years ago, getting drunk together, we used to, at SNL, there was a lot of drinking, believe it or not. And we would end up downtown fairly late, and those were always interesting evenings. Career-wise, there's just so many fun moments and so many great highlights. I shot a movie with Will that I wrote called Eurovision, and here we go. There's a European in the crowd today, and
big Iceland contingent.
Yes. But we were in London together, incessantly for 2.5 months, and that was probably in terms of fun, highlight. Now, Will and I had already seen 3 or 4 Eurovisions live, which in and of themselves are crazy events. So I can't pinpoint an exact moment, but definitely the London experience, being with Will that time. I mean, quite honestly, a road trip with your best friend, 16 days, a very rare thing to even have for any of us with a close friend, and I got to do that, so that also, it was a highlight.
So let me ask you about your love of road trips, which is the backdrop to this film. You say that and we hear in the film that, you love dive bars and, these very Americana places like racetracks, and you grew up in the Midwest. I mean, can you explore what it is that you love about the highways of America?
I grew up in Iowa. It's the middle of nowhere. I love it. However, it's the kind of place where you, if you have any kind of natural curiosity, you're going to leave it. And then so you're going to leave in different directions all the time. And so early in my 20s, I was a hitchhiker. I hitchhiked literally everywhere. I've hitchhiked from Alaska all the way down to LA. I've hitchhiked from LA, New York, San Francisco, all of it. And so I was always sort of seeing the countryside. So it's a kind of it's a part of who I am. Just I have the country in my head at all times. And as soon as I was rich enough to afford a car, I did the same thing, and I drove back and forth across. I don't know how to explain that love other than just there's so much beauty out there that I just respond to. And I collect records. I'm a thrift store person. I end up in these kind of church basements or thrift stores or places like that, and you're running into just people from all walks of life. And there's just nothing better than that conversation that you strike up with a stranger in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's to me, it's why we're here. And so I will never not love that. I just drove across the country 3 months ago, so yeah.
So when the idea came to film this as a road trip, I'm unclear who had the idea. If it was Will's idea, it was your idea jointly. But what were your feelings about it? What were your feelings of hope or anxiety about it?
Mainly anxiety. Will came up with the idea, and I said no. And that was in a spring, about a year before we actually ended up shooting it. I came back to LA. It was late August, and I was in his backyard, and he brought it up again. And by that time, there had been a lot of anti-trans bills passed and a lot of legislation that was kind of building. And as we know, it's continued to build and build and build to the point where soon it will be illegal to be trans. But so I thought I had this great person in Will Ferrell who was beloved by red states and blue states, who happened to also be a good friend of mine. And that was when I personally thought, oh, you know what, this is a good idea. I want to do this. I can do something. This will be good. And but it was Will's idea. And, you know, he was very clear up front. He's not a virtue signal-y person. This wasn't about him trying to pretend that he was, a friend. I think he was just naturally curious what it was like for me to go through this experience because we had been such close friends.
And so, but it was in your head, this could be a good thing for trans visibility.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah. I mean, I don't like to think that in any way that I'm representative of the trans community. I'm a privileged, white, successful person, and the people who are probably most in danger are not in that position. But I did think, and what has come to play out since this thing has been broadcast on Netflix, which has an incredible reach, I did think that there are ways that this film can help the conversation, especially within families. And I get that all the time. I get parents coming up to me saying things like, I have a trans child and we watch the film together, or vice versa. And then that's basically the reason why the film was made, is to keep those conversations going and allow people to kind of understand each other.
I mean, until now, you've been a behind-the-scenes person as a writer and a producer, and putting yourself into a film that winds up on Netflix with Will Ferrell makes you more of a public person. So what has that been like?
It took a little while to get used to. I'm not Taylor Swift, let's be honest. I'm glad for that.
We have a guitar.
You would get a very bad concert. But I'm in bars every once in a while and people buy me drinks, so I would say that's a win. No, again, it's about people coming up to me, especially queer people, saying they had similar journeys or they had watched it with their parents or anything like that. It's been super special. I'm not uncomfortable by it anymore. I actually enjoy talking to groups. I go out and talk to people as much as I can. Anything I can do, not to promote myself, but to promote this film and to keep it kind of front and center so that we can figure out a way to fight what's happening.
I mean, when we catch you at this moment in your journey, it seems still new. You're still new, answering questions to a friend like Will. It's a new adjustment for your family, for your children, and I wonder how your point in that journey today is compared to a couple of years ago when the film was being made.
Yeah, it's a comfort level, that's all. I mean, it's like in the early days, it was uncomfortable. I mean, I wasn't a public person, and I never was. In fact, I avoided it so intensely that it was a very weird jump for me to take. But I will say this. Transitioning is a sloppy and very vulnerable thing to go through for anyone. And not necessarily, I'm just talking about trans people, any kind of transition where you're making a leap of faith. It's a vulnerable thing. So once you embrace that vulnerability, suddenly other things that might have scared you before become less scary. And I do think that that's the superpower of being trans is embracing a kind of vulnerability and then becoming comfortable within that vulnerability. And I personally am in love with it at this point. It's not that I want to be celebrity or a performer or anything. I just think the idea of being messy and sloppy and vulnerable. Kristen Wiig once, before the doc, when I was transitioning, I said, "This is really hard and uncomfortable and messy." And she goes, "Isn't that fun?" And I said, "What is wrong with you?" Now I get it, though. I mean, it is. You have to embrace that sloppiness and that mess, and that's who we are. We're humans.
So, in the last 5 months, being trans in this country has gotten even harder, as you alluded to. For all of us who experience lots of change and craziness in the last 5 months, it can be hard to focus on what the experience is for any specific individual. But I wonder what the experience has been like for you in the last 5 months.
Well, personally, I'm riding up a storm and having a great time. No, it's been a shit show. He literally was just on stage with that robot friend of his who's no longer his friend. And they were talking about the money they saved by blocking some program where people were trying to make trans mice and the transgendering of America. I forget how he put it. I'm sure not even as intelligent as that. It's a constant drumbeat coming out of this administration, which started really not with this idiot, but with Christian nationalists a long time ago. We're the spearhead, or the trans people are the freaks in the spearhead that we can try to get rid of. But they've never been on the side of queer people in any place, gay marriage or any of it. They've never been on the side of this. So they're seeing little inroads through the trans community, and it's going to keep going and keep going, and we know where that ends up. That ends up with pogroms. So it's terrifying. I think it's a terrifying place we're at, and I think there's a kind of benign, this guy's a buffoon, but that's not what's happening. What this guy is actually doing is changing society and bringing racism full on to the forefront. I think the trans issue is not the most important issue we're facing, but for me personally, it's very much felt. Where am I getting my drugs? Am I going to get insurance? Am I going to be told I can't go into bathrooms? All of it. This is very real. This is a very real thing, and but I think there's lots of communities out here right now that are also suffering from the same impulse that's happening, and I would say, I'm going to guess it's L.A. There's probably not a lot of Trump people in the audience, but maybe there are. It's like, go on a road trip with a trans person. It's see what you get out of that. I think you'll find out people are human beings.
So you said you went on a road trip recently without Will Ferrell or a camera crew. How did that go?
I've done it 3 or 4 times since that road trip. It always goes great. I stop in the same kinds of places, and a lot of the places I stop in are sort of where disenfranchised people end up anyway. So we're all part of a group, and so we end up in these places, and some woman will walk up to me in a thrift store and tell me something looks great that I'm holding, you're off and running. Who are you? Why are you here? What are we doing here? So I do. That's sort of the circle I run in. The truck stops. Look, as a trans woman, I've had to understand pulling into a rest stop at 10 at night and going into the bathroom. It makes me a little more afraid. Going into a truck stop, walking into a bathroom, a women's bathroom I see a family going in there with their children. Again, this is a very contentious area around the trans world, around bathrooms and around children and around all of it. So I get a little hyper-focused in areas like that. I think it's a shame that any of us has to feel fear in any place in this country. But I feel it. I don't feel it anything like I think, someone who is not as advantaged. I can get in my car and I can lock the door. I can go find a hotel room. I can afford all these escape pods that so many people can't afford, and so many people have to feel fear kind of on a daily basis. So in that sense, my privilege protects me in a lot of these places.
So as I wrap this up, I want to ask how you're keeping your sense of humor these days.
I mean, I would say, I was about to say we have a funny government running, but it's not funny at all at this point. It's not. I don't even really joke about that. No, there's no way that the whole world has been through a comic lens my whole life. There's no way that it's not funny to me. I'm working in Atlanta right now. He's working in Atlanta on something different. If we get together, it's like we're never apart. And so, it's like that all my comedy friends are like that. And I don't know. I don't think I'll ever see the world not funny, even as they're marching me into this is not a funny thing I'm about to say, even as they're marching me into, well, where they march people into. I probably will be making jokes. So, I don't think I would ever lose that.
Well, thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for the gift of this film.
Thank you for showing up.
Whenever you do.
Thank you.
Harper Steele.
Yes, thank you.
Support for this podcast comes from Disney Plus, presenting Beatles 64. From producer Martin Scorsese, witness the Beatles' first trip to America through never-before-seen footage and interviews, and see why Rolling Stone calls Beatles 64 a fresh look at how we became the United States of Beatlemania. Deadline raves it's a nostalgic, enlightening must-see. For your Emmy consideration in all categories, including Outstanding Documentary or Nonfiction Special, Beatles 64, now streaming only on Disney+. Our second title is the 5-part series from FX called Social Studies that tracks a number of teenagers from Los Angeles and their relationship to social media. The filmmaker Lauren Greenfield has a long career of looking at people's relationship to wealth and status. Her films include Generation Wealth and The Kingmaker about Imelda Marcos. Her documentary The Queen of Versailles is coming to Broadway this fall as a musical with Kristen Chenoweth. I was joined by Lauren and 3 of the participants from Social Studies, Sydney Shear, Dominic Brown, and Jonathan Gelfond. They were in high school at the time of filming, and now they're in college or recently graduated. Let's hear that conversation. So, Lauren, there's no shortage of studies of social media these days. What were you hoping to try to do uniquely in this project?
Well, when we started it, there actually wasn't that much about it. There had been the social dilemma, which was great. But what I tried to do that was different from that is really have it be all in the kids' voices. Like I made a decision in the beginning to not have any experts and kind of went back to my own roots. My first book was about kids growing up in LA and about how they were influenced by the values of Hollywood, materialism and celebrity and image. And so in a lot of ways, the content of media influence and that early loss of innocence was something that I had been kind of working on for a long time. But I also did something different in the setup for this, where I wanted to make a social experiment. I felt like the media was the message we needed to see inside the phones. And so we brought together a group of young people, and these guys are part of it, who did the unthinkable, agreed to let me have full access to their phones for a 1-year period. And that was something I couldn't even get with my own child, who was kind of an inspiration for this. He was 14 at the time, and my eldest child was 20, and I saw this huge difference between their coming of age. And so we developed a technology, we developed a workflow where we could download and grab the social media as we went, and then created a kind of animated way of showing the screen recordings. I really didn't want to like cut to the content. I wanted to experience it at the same time as we were experiencing the live action. So we would have this contrast, and, you know, we would see the lie, we would see the presentation, but then when they were talking to me in an interview or talking to each other in the group discussions, they were just like completely brutally honest and vulnerable. Like Sydney, I'll just use Sydney as an example. She makes these very sexy videos in the beginning of the show. And then we see her interview in her room, and she's like, it's like the other side of her, like the most innocent kind of girl with pastels and stuffed animals and quotes on the wall. And so you get to see kind of the contrast in the craft. And also the verite part. I wanted to follow kids. So we kind of use 4 perspectives to get into it. The group discussions, their interviews where they really break it down and deconstruct it and become truth tellers and are experts. And then the verite where they're really like subjects in their own lives. And then their social media where they're creators, they're makers, but we also see them being their presentational selves.
So, Sydney, like when the film crew would leave, would you be like texting your friends, these old people are so lame, and then realize, oh, wait, they can read that, oh, delete. No, that's not my question. What made you want to participate in this?
Lauren came to my class when I was a senior in high school at Pally, and it was my film class, and I don't think you quite knew exactly what the project would become or what even it was going to be. And she was like, if anybody wants to share their experience about social media, does anybody have anything to share? And I was currently going through this cyberbullying incident that we explore in episode 1, and I didn't really have an outlet at the time. I hadn't really talked to anybody about it. I was still in the middle of this finding my voice, and I had a story to tell, and so I started talking to Lauren about it, and I'm very grateful to have had that outlet to share my voice. And I think what's really cool about the series is that you said that you come in with a rough idea, but you kind of find it along the way. And I found my voice along the way, and very grateful to have had that space to share my story.
So, Dominic, we glimpsed in the trailer there that a facet of this is that Lauren would gather all these young people and have conversations and, ask questions. Lauren and I are about the same age, which is not young. And so I wonder what it was like, in a generational way to have someone of your parents' generation coming and asking questions and feeling open to talk to them.
I mean, I can't lie. It was difficult at first because I don't tell my parents what I do on social media. They have to find that out for themselves. And yeah, I didn't really feel comfortable, sharing my experience with social media with my parents. And so this experience that we all had with Lauren was sort of like revolutionary for me, like understanding that, the people from older generations are actually like they do care about what we're experiencing on social media, and they do want to intervene and help. It was hard at first, but Lauren provided this environment where it really felt safe to do so, especially in the groups where we had no access to phones and we were just around people who had similar experiences as us, and we all could connect in ways that we just couldn't in our real lives, because our real lives have been disconnected with phone access and access to social media. And so I think the environment that Lauren provided us really was so essential to us feeling comfortable sharing our story in ways that we didn't feel comfortable doing so with adults in our lives at the moment. And I think that's really beautiful, because you see it in the product. You see, how everyone is just having this raw, unfiltered story being told about our lives. And it's a beautiful thing, because there are people in the world who are having similar experiences as us who probably feel very alone. And now, because of this project, they feel less alone.
So, Jonathan, was interesting to me, your presence in the series, because you were kind of making your own documentaries about your school, and we also see you operating a teen support line. So you were kind of attuned to a lot of these things in a different way. And I wonder, when you watch the series, what is it that stands out to you? What do you see reflected about your peers?
Yeah, I think it's a really honest, transparent look at our lives. I think it's raw and unfiltered. You guys saw some clips from the trailer, and I really encourage you all to watch the rest of the series, because it does talk a lot about hard topics, about suicidality, depression, eating disorders, school shooting threats that all occur because of social media and our phones, and these are the ways that we communicate. But at the end, it really shows sort of a hopeful story of perseverance and resilience of my fellow teens, and two of them are here on stage today. So I think it's unfiltered in the way that it portrays our life and how we're living it, and how that has been shaped by growing up as a digital native. But it also shows that there is hope, and I think that hope lies within the people sitting next to me.
I mean, Lauren, as you were making it, were you thinking of this being for this generation or for their parents?
It's interesting. It has two audiences, and they have had a completely different reaction to the project. And even while we were doing it, like, Sydney's mom kind of speaks for a lot of parents, where she says, I don't know if I even want to know what's in my kid's TikTok. And we've definitely heard that from parents, like, I'm scared to watch. There's like a kind of guilt thing, and they feel like they should watch. But young people actually find it entertaining, validating, like, they're not scared. They feel seen, and like, we showed it in Thessaloniki, Greece recently, and the kids there were like, it's the first time we've seen something about us in a small town in Greece. So I think it's kind of what Dominic was saying about, like, they don't really feel like people care that much. And I think what you see in the show is there's a lot of teens relying on other teens, because parents are just so far, like, whether it's the teen crisis line of Teen Line, or there's a vigilante story where Anthony is going after people who have done sexual assault, because the police and the authorities are not. And there's other examples of, like, kids helping kids, because parents are kind of in their own world. So that it's been really interesting. I mean, I think what we really hope is for parents and teens to watch it together. Like, that's what we're suggesting, because even for me with my own kids, it taught me, like, what questions to even ask. And there's definitely a generation gap, and it's, like, too big. Like, there was in episode 4, it's about sex and how kids learn about sex now, which is social media and pornography. And what I learned in the group is that BDSM is a really popular trend with teenagers. And this wasn't just one or two. This was like discussion from a lot of the group, which is why I did those group discussions, so they could kind of do the silent clapping, and we would see that it wasn't just the story of one person. And I showed it one night, and we were talking about the BDSM thing and the Q&A. We showed episode 1, and then afterwards I saw a friend who was my age, who was a reporter, and his 22-year-old daughter, and they said, oh, we're going to go home and watch it. Should we watch it together? I said, yeah, but maybe the sex episode you might want to watch apart. And his daughter said, no, I went through that whole BDSM thing myself, and I want my dad to see. So that was like a lot of, I mean, I think even like Sydney hadn't told her mom all the details of the slut shaming story that she goes through. And in a way, I think some of the kids participated so that their parents would see. There's a story with Jordan where her mom's very strict, and they're often right next to each other on the couch, both on their screens. And Jordan, who seems to be like super shy and super listening to her mom all the time, is actually talking to boys all over the country and arranging illicit meetups. And one of the meetups, she didn't even tell us about it or let us film it, but it was on her social, and we have access to the social. So then I asked her about it, and she said, well, let me see where my mom is. And she looked at her Find My Friends, and she said, oh, she's far enough away. I'll tell you the story. And so then when we were in group, she brought it up, and the other kids were like, well, is your mom going to watch the show? Like, she doesn't know yet. And she said, yeah, she'll see it, but it's going to be in 2 years. So it'll be okay.
Well, it's out now, and you can watch it on Hulu or wherever you watch your FX shows. Thanks very much to the team from Social Studies for sharing.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Our final segment looks at the 4-part series Chimp Crazy from HBO Documentary Films. It's created by the film team best known for Tiger King. The director, Eric Goode, has an unusual background for a documentary filmmaker. He previously had a successful career running New York nightclubs and restaurants. But Eric also has a passion for animals and founded the Turtle Conservancy in Ojai, California. That gave him insight into the worlds of other animal collectors. To make this series, he partnered with Jeremy McBride, who has a background in real estate but demonstrated a great flair for documentary, helping to make Tiger King. In Chimp Crazy, they set out to look at the subculture of women who are devoted to raising chimpanzees. A key figure in the series is Tanya Haddix, a larger-than-life character who compares herself to Dolly Parton. Because Eric already had a reputation from Tiger King, he knew that many exotic animal owners would turn him away. So he hired a proxy named Dwayne Cunningham, who became the front person for this film and got close to Tanya. She had custody of a chimp named Tonka, who once appeared in several Hollywood films. Tanya was being sued by the animal rights organization PETA. To avoid their pressure, she claimed that her chimpanzee Tonka had died. In the course of filming, Dwayne was surprised to discover that Tonka was still alive in Tanya's basement. That created a dilemma for the film team as they had to decide whether to intervene or not. Here's my conversation with Eric Goode and Jeremy McBride. Eric, you had this incredible thing happen with Tiger King. I mean, it was a documentary filmmaker's dream to have that much rich material, and then it comes out just as COVID is beginning, is watched by millions of people around the world, becomes this phenomenon. I mean, a lot of people could say, like, okay, I'm good with my documentary career. Like, how do I top that? What made you feel like, now let me do this again?
Well, first of all, I really never expected this to be, as interesting as it became. After Tiger King, we cast a wide net looking at all kinds of subcultures in the animal world. And one of those was this world of monkey moms that I knew nothing about. But little, frankly, I would think people like yourself would think we made it up, because how can that happen twice? That you're filming, cat people, and then you're filming chimp and monkey people, and something as bizarre as what happened happens. So I would think that people shouldn't believe this story.
But you are telling we should believe this story.
Yeah, but I could see why people might question, the story.
Yeah.
But yes, it's completely true. We were, in many ways, we wanted to do a different project actually after Tiger King because it felt so, in so many ways similar in a way, and we don't want to just do the same thing over and over again. But it's what happened.
So, Jeremy, as I kind of described in the setup, there's certain layers of deception that are involved in the making of this. You hired this guy, Dwayne Cunningham, to go meet Tanya Haddox, spend lots of time with her. He has a background that she might assume would make her more sympathetic to her story than if Eric Goode, the Tiger King guy, knocked on her door and said he wants to make a documentary about her. How did you as a team kind of rationalize these different layers of deception?
That's a good question. So I think for starters, we had a pretty long production cycle and editorial schedule. So I think we were on this project for about 4.5 years, of which maybe 250 days of filming, real days, multi-camera. We would send it would be very often, very very common for us to send out crews to cover material that we couldn't be at. And so this, as Eric mentioned, kind of the background, we had very deep interest in these basically human stories that kind of centered around these subcultures of animal interest and in many cases. With the monkeys, it was more about attachments and exotic pets. And we wanted to kind of see this world through the originator of the world, which is Connie Casey, which we cover very early in the show. So we had to find someone that could really be the right person to cover the confiscation. We really found Dwayne Cunningham, who was a big part of the team effort for a long time. So I think it was sort of, for us, what's really hard with this is that it was never really calculated in the sense of, we knew this person would be the right person to deceive this, and we were going to see a missing chimpanzee at the end of the day. I think it was more of a cover the event, and through the coverage of the event, we realized, oh no, Dwayne's now stuck in this environment with a person that that now has committed this abduction of an animal that we have to now wrestle with what we're going to do, not only to cover it, but to be safe and handle what's best for our crew and obviously the subject as well.
I should say, for people who haven't seen it, there is a disclosure made eventually to Tanya that the person behind this project is Eric. And Eric, you sit down and interview Tanya. And one of the things you say to her is like, I understand an attachment to animals. As your Turtle Conservancy, you feel deeply connected to the creatures that you have. What did you feel about Tanya? Like, what is your perception of her?
Listen, Tanya, I had mixed feelings about Tanya, and I spent well over a year filming Tanya. So, it appears sometimes I wasn't there as much as I was, and I was there quite a bit with Tanya, and she was very generous to let us into her world. And the way it would typically go, I would show up and she'd be maybe 3 hours late, and our crew would be waiting, and I'd say, Tanya, you were supposed to be ready at 9, and she'd say, we're ready at 1 o'clock, and we have to go. She would say, I have to go to an appointment, and I'd say, well, could we at least follow you to that appointment? And that would be maybe, getting a tan or getting your eyelashes done, or and I would take advantage of those moments, but it wasn't contrived or us trying to come up with ideas. It was literally us shadowing Tanya. So, part of me was, I felt, wow, she's so open and willing to let us into her world. And I felt very privileged and lucky to have a subject like that. On the flip side, she's her own worst enemy, and she can't stop talking. So I just want to be clear about the deception. Dwayne Cunningham, we brought him in to interview and try to make contact with Connie Casey, who we knew hadn't given an interview for many years. A colleague of mine did a book called Forbidden Creatures, maybe 15 years earlier, and he was really one of the last people to gain an interview with her. And I knew that she would be hard, and we never did gain access to Connie. We met Tanya, who we didn't even know existed, and Tanya will talk to anyone, and Dwayne got comfortable with her. You could argue maybe I should have come in sooner, and that is something that we, grapple with. But she didn't skip a beat when I first interviewed her. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm not going to talk to you. You did Tiger King. It was quite the opposite.
So, Jeremy, let's go back to this filming 250 days, because I think it's that, ability when you can do that allows you to be there when all these different twists and turns happen in both these series that you're now well known for, Tiger King and Chimp Crazy. So, can you talk about your structure as a film company that allows you to be filming for 250 days?
A lot of that was during a period of COVID, and obviously with the 4-year overlap. So we were on the road. We were covering multiple things, multiple projects at the same time. So in many cases, we were in territories where we'd film for one idea of a project and also cover something else. And so we were very efficient that way. But we're also very lean. So some of our, in this episode, for those that have seen it, you guys will appreciate this too, some of the best moments you have come oftentimes when you least expect them, with resources you wish you had. There was one particular day towards the end of this episode where Eric's filming at Dwayne Cunningham's niece's birthday party, where he's performing as a circus clown. And it also so happens to be the day where Tanya calls Dwayne and says that she's going to kill the chimpanzee. So, and you cover that by yourself with one camera, basically a camera operator, who was just like the last guy could get to come cover. And you rigged your own sound. Well,
the entire crew is me and my camera guy, and he did sound.
Yeah, he rigged your own sound and all that stuff. So it was really one of these things where like
very gonzo.
It was like gonzo. It probably has the most like return on coverage that we have, but it was one of those things that reminded us very early. We want to film every moment we can. Whatever in any capacity we could, either a small crew, a satellite crew. We had many people covering this along the way, but it was very structurally that way, and then we had remote teams kind of everywhere covering the edit as well, which was also really hard to kind of bring in and hone in.
Not a good strategy if you want to make a living as a filmmaker to shoot 250 days on one doc series.
Can you talk about the concrete things that you've seen come of these series? I know that, like, there was legislation that came out of Tiger King, and what do you hope, given that you have dedicated a great deal of your life to animal conservation, what do you hope that making these films does in that pursuit?
Good question. I should just point out, in the onset, that I am not the animal police. I'm not even an animal rights activist. I'm, if anything, an animal welfare activist. I'm not wearing leather right now, but I do wear leather, and I do eat meat from time to time. And so I'm not a hardcore animal rights activist, although I think they are oftentimes wonderful. So, I go into this really caring more about, the species that we inhabit this planet with, more with respect. And in the case of this chimpanzees, because I don't want to look like a hypocrite, because I do, have and kept animals my entire life. I do think chimpanzees are on a different level, and as some other species, and are not suited to be kept in a cage alone. And so they live horrible lives, and most primates, frankly, are highly social, complex animals like we are. And what Tonka was deprived of, being in the basement of Tanya's house more than anything. Tonka had a color TV and air conditioning and all the candy it wanted in McDonald's, but it was missing the companionship of another chimp. And that was the biggest thing. And so Tonka today is with a group of chimps and can, yeah. So hopefully we can make change, and we do not want to make films that only preach to the converted. And that's part of why it's important for us to make films that are entertaining, so you can reach people that wouldn't even want to be contemplating this issue. And yes, Tiger King did pass legislation which no longer, people can no longer have puppy mills of tigers and use them and exploit them for photo ops in this country.
But also actually, about 2 weeks ago they reintroduced a bill that's had a hard time for about 20 years, been sitting on the shelf, that would ban basically the purchase of all primates, not just chimpanzees, in the United States, which is a massive market. So if you see them, if you see animals at markets or at someone's backyard and in a roadside zoo, it's very inhumane. So I think there's a pending bill that's gone through the House now that's going to have some really good momentum following this film to get a chance at being passed.
I think it's the Public Primate Safety Act.
Yeah, Captive
Primate Safety Act.
Yeah.
Well, it now has a new audience of people who will be following that bill thanks to this show. Chimp Crazy, it's out from HBO Documentary Films. Thanks very much to Eric Goode and Jeremy McBride. I want to thank all of our guests, from Will and Harper on Netflix, Social Studies from FX and available on Hulu, and Chimp Crazy from HBO Documentary Films and available on Max. Thanks to the Ankler team of London Sanders and Hannah Hensler. And thanks to our team, Doc Voices writer Bella Racklin, series producer Hannah Nordenswan, and web designer Cross Strategy. Our theme music is composed by Andre Williams, and our executive producer is Raphael Nahausen. I'm Thom Powers. Follow us on Instagram and visit our website at purenonfiction.net.